Long ago, nestled between misty mountains and endless fields of plum trees, there was a quiet village called Sukihana, the moon blossom. In Sukihana, time moved with the wind. Lanterns danced in the breeze, koi fish circled silently in still ponds, and the people spoke in soft voices so they would not disturb the dreams of the forest spirits. At the edge of the village was a lake, so still it mirrored the moon perfectly every night. They called it Moon Lake, and it was said that once every 100 years, the moon itself would send down a gift to the water. No one had seen it until the year the cranes came. The story begins with a girl named Sora, who lived alone with her grandmother in a little wooden house on the hillside. Sora was quiet like the lake, always watching, always listening. She loved folding paper cranes from the pages of old books her grandmother kept. Some were poems, others were recipes, and some were simply blank, waiting to be filled. One evening, as soft rain tapped gently on the paper screens of their home, her grandmother whispered, "If you fold 1,000 cranes and place the last one on Moon Lake, the moon will grant you a dream." Sora didn't ask what kind of dream. She simply nodded and began folding. Days turned to weeks. She folded cranes from rice paper, from tea wrappers, from scrolls forgotten in the attic. Every morning, she left 5 cranes by the lake, letting them rest on the surface. They never sank. They just floated, like boats with wings. But Sora didn't wish for riches or fame. She just wanted to see her grandmother smile again, really smile, like she did when the plum trees first bloomed. On the 1,000th night, with snow lightly dusting the rooftops and the moon full and clear, Sora stood at the lake's edge. The final crane rested in her hands, gold, delicate, and perfectly folded. She placed it on the water. The lake shimmered, not with wind, not with rain, but with light. From the center of the lake, a shape began to rise, a crane, massive and glowing white, wings spread wide, made of folded light and shadow. Its eyes were calm, its movements slow, and around it, the air grew warmer. The paper crane of the moon had awakened. "Sora," it spoke, its voice like wind through pine. "You have not wished for power, not for escape. You wished only for joy in another's heart." Sora nodded, unable to speak. "Then tonight I grant you not one dream, but many. Each time the moon is full, your grandmother will dream of her happiest memory, and she will wake with laughter in her chest." Sora's eyes filled with quiet tears. "Thank you." The crane bowed, its wings folding inwards, and slowly, like mist, it drifted into the sky, becoming a single glowing star that hovered above Moon Lake forevermore. From that night on, whenever the moon was round and bright, the people of Sukihana would pause, look toward the lake, and smile. Because laughter, soft and real, would always rise from the little wooden house on the hillside. And high above, the star crane kept watch, waiting, just in case someone else needed a dream. Spring returned to Sukihana with a quiet grace. The plum trees bloomed once more, their petals fluttering down like shy snow. The lake glistened with dragonflies, and in the bamboo grove behind Sora's house, the wind played songs only old people remembered how to hum. Sora now folded cranes for joy, not for wishes. Her grandmother laughed more often. She had begun singing again while making soup, just as she had in Sora's early childhood. Every full moon, her dreams came alive, filled with fireflies, laughter, and memories of her husband's flute. But one morning, something strange happened. A crane appeared. Not one made of paper, and not the great moon crane, but a real, living bird, snow white, waiting on Sora's doorstep. Around its neck was a thin silk ribbon, and attached to it, a tiny scroll. Sora untied it with careful fingers. It read, "To the one who folds dreams. A whisper is lost in the wind garden. If you follow it, you will hear the name of the crane who never flew. Come when the moon is half." The bamboo voice. Sora didn't understand the message completely, but she felt something tug inside her chest, like a memory she hadn't lived yet. She knew she had to go. The night of the half moon arrived. Sora wore her softest kimono and brought 3 folded cranes with her, one red, one white, one black. Just in case. She followed the path through the bamboo grove, where shadows danced gently and the wind whispered in a language only the trees seemed to understand. Then the path opened into a garden unlike any she had seen. There were no flowers, no lanterns, only wind. Tall bamboo stalks rose like emerald towers, and each one had a chime tied near the top, hundreds of tiny bells, soft as snowfall. The chimes rang not when the wind blew, but when memories passed by. She heard them, tiny fragments. A child's laugh. A lullaby sung in the rain. The sound of someone whispering, "I'm home." And then, one whisper clearer than the rest. "I was never brave enough to fly." The wind hushed. Sora turned toward the sound and saw a statue. A stone crane, cracked with age, eyes closed, wings folded. She felt her chest tighten. Without knowing why, Sora stepped forward and placed her white paper crane at the statue's feet. "Then let me be your courage," she said softly. As the paper touched the stone, the wind stilled completely. Then, one chime rang. Then 2. Then hundreds. The bamboo grove sang with the joy of a spirit being released, and the stone crane opened its eyes. It did not speak, but it smiled. And in a gust of silver wind, it lifted into the sky, no longer stone, no longer silent, a white light rising to meet the stars. That night Sora returned home. She did not tell her grandmother everything, but when she folded a crane the next morning, the paper felt warmer in her hands. Somewhere in the skies of Tsukihana, a crane that had once forgotten how to fly now danced among clouds, carried by the courage of a quiet girl and the whispers of the wind. Summer came gently to Tsukihana. The lake warmed under golden skies, the cicadas sang sleepy songs in the afternoon, and fireflies danced at dusk like glowing teardrops. Sora's days were peaceful. She helped her grandmother hang herbs to dry, folded little paper birds for the village children, and sometimes sat by Moon Lake with her toes in the cool water, whispering stories to the floating cranes. But one night, just after the Bon Festival, when lanterns were floated on rivers to guide the spirits of loved ones, something strange returned. A crane. Again. But this one was folded from blue rice paper, soaked slightly by dew, and nestled quietly on the doorstep. Tucked beneath one wing was another scroll. Sora unrolled it carefully. Dreams left uncared still wait by the river. Come before the seventh night moon. Bring light. Bring memory. Follow the koi, the one who remembers. Sora looked up at the sky. The seventh moon would rise in just 2 nights. She didn't ask anyone what to do. She simply packed a lantern, her favorite brush, a jar of fireflies, and a single paper crane, red this time. And just before midnight on the 7th night, she followed the winding forest path toward the river that shimmered at the edge of the mountain. The river of dreams was quiet. Too quiet. No frogs sang. No leaves rustled. The only sound was the slow lap of water against stone, and the faint ripple of golden koi fish gliding under the surface. Sora placed her lantern on the riverbank. It was small, handmade, 4 sides of parchment with a frame carved from plumwood. On each panel, she had painted with care a crane, a moon, a tree, and a tiny house. Inside, the fireflies blinked like sleepy stars. As she released the lantern into the water, it bobbed gently and began to drift. She followed. The koi glided ahead, slow and silent, and the river bent into a place she'd never seen before. There, resting in the shallows, were dozens of forgotten lanterns, dim, cracked, weathered with time. Some barely glowed. Others flickered out as she approached. And then a whisper came from the reeds. "We are dreams uncarried. No one waited for us. We faded before the light reached home." Sora's heart hurt. She knelt down and placed her red crane among the dim lanterns. "I see you," she whispered, "and I'll carry you home." She took a brush from her satchel and began to paint, slowly, with river water and ink, new panels for the broken lanterns. She relit fireflies from her jar, sang lullabies her grandmother used to hum, and folded tiny paper boats to help the lanterns float again. Hours passed. Then a breeze. The lanterns rose. Not on water, not by wind, but as if lifted by memory. They floated into the sky, dozens of glowing lights, each carrying a dream long forgotten, now remembered. One by one, they soared beyond the treetops, toward the stars. And just before they disappeared, the koi in the river turned to light and leapt, golden arcs sparkling through the air, before fading into soft mist. Sora stood at the riverbank, lanternless but glowing inside. She did not know whose dreams she had lifted, but something in the night had changed. When she returned home, her grandmother was waiting, eyes wide. "I had a dream," she whispered. "I saw your grandfather again. He was lighting lanterns for others. And he said thank you?" Sora only smiled. That night, Moon Lake was still. But high above it, if you looked closely, you might have seen tiny lights gliding gently through the sky. Not stars, but dreams, carried home at last. The air turned crisp. Maple leaves burned gold and crimson, drifting softly through the village like embers from an invisible fire. Smoke from cooking fires curled upward, and the scent of roasted chestnuts followed children as they played between fallen leaves. Sora had grown quieter, though not sad. Since the night of the lanterns, something within her had changed, not in a way others could see, but in the way the wind sometimes seemed to pause when she passed, or the way animals blinked slowly, as if recognizing something more in her than just a girl. And then the final message arrived. Not on a crane, not on a scroll, but in the whisper of her own breath one morning, as she folded laundry on the porch. The grove is calling. That was all. And yet, she knew exactly where to go. There was an old path behind the rice fields, overgrown and forgotten by the young. Elders used to say it led to a forest where names could be heard in the rustle of leaves. Names long lost, names unborn, and names never spoken aloud. Sora followed the path at dusk, a small satchel over her shoulder. Inside it, one brush, a blank scroll, 3 paper cranes, and a small stone her grandmother had once called a wish you can hold. The forest greeted her not with silence, but with a deep, gentle hum, like a lullaby played on wind chimes. Leaves whispered around her. Moss glowed faintly underfoot. And then she saw it, the grove of the forgotten name. A ring of ancient trees, taller than temples, their trunks wide as small houses. In the center stood a pool of water, perfectly still. Above it, branches arched inwards like hands cradling a memory. And floating just above the pool, a single name written in glowing characters. Sora. Her own. But as she stepped closer, the name shimmered and vanished. In its place, hundreds of other names bloomed into light, overlapping, echoing softly in the air like birdsong. Some she recognized, friends, family, children from the village. Others felt ancient, names that tasted like mist, like mountains, like forgotten lullabies. And one name made her stop. Suru. Crane. Not the bird. Not a folded paper shape. But a name. A person. A spirit? She didn't know. But something deep within her chest, something quiet and old, remembered it. She knelt by the pool and placed her 3 paper cranes into the water. As they touched the surface, the names in the air stilled. The wind quieted. Then, a shape began to form in the reflection. A girl. Her age. Wearing a kimono stitched with silver feathers, eyes kind, but distant, like someone remembering something beautiful and painful all at once. Sora, the reflection spoke. You carry not only dreams, but names. Names forgotten by time. Names never spoken aloud. Names that once had wings. Sora felt a tear fall, even though she didn't feel sad. What must I do? She whispered. The reflection smiled softly. You already are. But if you wish to remember me fully, you must return to the place where the first crane landed, and give me a name again. The wind picked up. Leaves swirled around the grove like dancers saying goodbye. Sora stood, heart quiet but full, and made her way back through the woods, this time with a name written inside her that didn't belong to her, and yet felt like home. That night, Moon Lake rippled with golden light. Sora sat on the edge of the dock, scroll in hand, and in bold, careful strokes she wrote one word: Tsuru. The moment the ink dried, the wind shifted, and high above the lake, a shape formed from starlight, not paper, not cloud, but spirit. The spirit of the one forgotten, now remembered, now named. And in that moment, the stars seemed to gather closer, listening. The nights in Sukihana had grown longer. The moon hung lower over the lake now, golden and wide, casting a trail of silver on the rippling surface. Crickets sang in soft choruses, and the village seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something unseen to arrive. Sora sat by her window each evening, folding new paper cranes. But tonight, her hands paused. On her shelf stood a lantern she had never lit. It had belonged to her mother once, shaped like a bellflower, with a silk tassel and panes of pale rice paper. Sora had always admired it but never touched it. Her grandmother said it was used only when the heart needs an answer. Tonight felt like that kind of night. She lit it, not with fire, but with memory. Inside the lantern, she placed the scroll where she had written Tsuru, the name she had given back to the forgotten spirit in the grove. The lantern didn't glow like others. It sang. A quiet tone, like wind over glass, filled the room, and when Sora looked through the lantern's paper, she didn't see her bedroom anymore. She saw Tsuru. Not the shimmering spirit, but the girl. Alive. Walking through a dream world of plum trees, moonlight, and folded wings. Tsuru was alone, holding something in her arms that looked like a broken crane. Then Sora heard her voice. I never meant to forget. I only wanted to help. But I folded myself into paper, and the world forgot I was real. Sora's eyes welled up. She reached through the lantern, not with hands, but with her voice. You are not paper anymore. You're not alone. The lantern shimmered. And suddenly, Sora was there, not in her room, but in a dream place built from memory and moonlight. Tsuru looked up. She smiled, and offered Sora the broken paper crane in her hands. This is the first wish I ever made. I folded it so tightly it could never open. Sora took it gently, and with breath as light as starlight she unfolded it. Inside was a single word, written long ago in a child's handwriting. Stay. Sora understood. Tsuru had once been a girl who folded herself away to keep others from leaving. But in doing so, she had disappeared herself. Sora folded the paper again, not into a crane this time, but into a heart. And she placed it in Tsuru's hands. You can stay now. You've been remembered. The wind shifted. Cherry blossoms bloomed in the dream place, even though it wasn't spring. The moon glowed brighter. The broken crane that had never opened before now lifted like a soft breath, and flew. Sora awoke at dawn. The lantern had gone out. But beside her on the windowsill sat a folded paper heart, one she hadn't made. And outside, near the lake, white cranes flew quietly across the sky, no longer alone. The story of Tsuru had come full circle. But Sora knew the lake still held other names, other dreams waiting to be unfolded. Moon Lake had always been a place of reflection, of lanterns, paper cranes, and quiet wishes that floated into the night. But now, as the season turned gently toward winter, Sora began to wonder about what lay beneath the surface. Not just the fish, or the stones, or the sunken petals from spring, but the stories, the ones never told aloud. Her grandmother once said, "There are threads under the lake. If your heart is still enough, you'll feel them tug." And one morning, just before first snow, Sora felt it. A tug, not on her hands or her hair, but somewhere behind her ribs. As if someone far below the water had whispered, "Now." So she prepared. She braided her hair. She wrapped herself in her softest shawl. She packed only 3 things: a mirror the size of her palm, a folded letter written long ago by her mother, and a spool of red thread tied around her wrist. Then, barefoot, she walked to the lake. The water was colder than she expected, but not unkind. She stepped in slowly, letting the ripples rise to her knees, then her waist, then her shoulders. With each step, the world above her grew quiet, the sky distant, the trees soft and blurry. When she lowered her face into the water, she did not sink. She descended, not like falling, but like being invited. The water around her became light, glowing ribbons and shifting currents like silk scarves. Fish of gold and blue swam past her calmly, brushing her fingers like old friends. Then she saw them. Threads. Thousands of them, weaving beneath the lake, red, silver, pale blue, and golden. They shimmered like music, each one stretching from stone to star, memory to name. Sora reached out to one that called her most, a thin red thread, vibrating softly against her wrist. And the moment she touched it, a memory unfolded. Not hers. A child sat alone by the lake. Her hands trembled as she tried to fold a crane, but the paper was wet. Her eyes were full of tears, though she made no sound. She whispered something into the paper, then let it sink. It never floated, and she left. The thread went quiet. Sora gasped softly. The thread in her hand dimmed, not broken, but unheard for so long it had forgotten how to shine. She took out her mirror and held it near the thread. The lake light caught the reflection, and the thread glowed brighter. A voice whispered, "Thank you," and the thread rewound. It stitched itself slowly back into the weave, reconnecting with a place, a name, a memory above the surface. Sora understood. This was her new task. Not only to remember names or send lanterns, but to mend what had been left behind. To stitch together forgotten dreams with care and patience. She swam gently from thread to thread, letting her heart listen. Some threads hummed songs of joy. Some carried goodbyes. Some pulsed with laughter once shared, and others simply waited, silent but hopeful, for someone to hold them again. When Sora returned to the surface, night had fallen. But she was not cold. The red thread around her wrist had unraveled, now part of the weave beneath the lake. And in her hand, the mirror still shimmered, not with her own reflection, but with hundreds of tiny lights. Threads she had touched, dreams she had helped remember. The next morning, the village woke to something strange and beautiful. All across the lake's edge, threaded patterns had appeared, woven between trees, across stones, and into the frost on the grass. Shapes of cranes, hearts, stars, and gentle hands. And in the center of the dock, a message stitched in red thread. Not all things lost are gone. Some just need to be held again. The first snow had come softly to Tsukihana. It fell like dreams, light and quiet, covering rooftops and lanterns in a dusting of white. Children left footprints in the morning frost, and the lake itself grew still beneath a thin layer of glassy ice. Sora stood at her window, watching snowflakes drift down like old memories returning home. Since she returned from the lake's threads, she had been quiet, not sad, just listening. There was something in the wind these days. Not words, not music. A presence. One evening, her grandmother brewed hot tea with plum blossoms and sat beside her. "Do you hear her?" the old woman asked softly, eyes on the wind chimes. Sora nodded. "She doesn't speak. But I feel her." Her grandmother smiled gently. "The voice in the winter wind is not heard with ears. It is a memory that touches your soul before it speaks." That night, the wind changed. It didn't howl or bite. It whispered, and in the silence that followed, came a feeling like warm breath against her cheek. Sora rose from bed, wrapped herself in a thick scarf, and stepped out into the cold. No footprints led across the snow, but she followed the wind, through the trees, past the sleeping shrine, and into a clearing she had never seen before, where snow fell in perfect circles, and the moon seemed closer than usual. There, standing in the middle of the clearing, was a tree made entirely of paper. Its branches were folded into cranes. Its trunk was calligraphy, words layered over each other like bark. Sora stepped closer, her breath misting in the air. The wind circled her once, then twice, and then whispered in a language she didn't speak, but somehow understood. Not all voices speak with sound. Some must be remembered before they can be heard. She placed her hand on the paper tree, and it shivered. A folded page opened in its trunk, a story written long ago, in ink faded by time and snow. She read the first line aloud, and the wind answered, not in words, but in feelings. Warmth, sorrow, hope. Suddenly she knew this was not just a tree. It was a library of wind-born stories, waiting for someone gentle enough to read them. She sat beneath the paper branches and began to unfold each page the tree offered, one by one. As she read, the wind slowed, as if pausing to listen to its own story, finally told. By dawn, the first light touched her shoulders, and the paper tree had begun to glow faintly, its branches unfolding into real wood. The wind no longer whispered. It breathed. And in that breath was a voice, clear and gentle. Thank you, Keeper of Names. Thank you for remembering what even the wind had forgotten. Sora smiled softly and closed her eyes. For the first time, she felt not like a girl in a small village, but like a thread in a great woven sky, connected to every whisper, every wish, every winter wind. Winter's grip slowly loosened its hold on Sukihana. The heavy snow began to melt, dripping softly from the eaves and awakening the earth beneath. The village stirred, stretching awake after a long, quiet slumber. Sora felt the change too, as if the stories she had tended were finally ready to bloom. One chilly morning, her grandmother handed her a small wooden box carved with delicate patterns of bells and plum blossoms. "These are the bells of silent spring," she said, her voice soft as the breeze. "They carry the voices of those who have waited through the cold, ready to sing again." Sora lifted the lid, revealing dozens of tiny bells, each tied with a thread of silk. "What do I do with them?" she asked. "Listen carefully," her grandmother smiled. "When the bells ring without wind, you'll know the stories are ready to be heard." That evening, as twilight deepened, Sora took the box and walked to the edge of Moon Lake. The air was still, but her heart beat with a quiet excitement. She untied a bell and hung it from a low branch of the paper tree, now fully blossomed into a graceful maple, its branches heavy with soft green leaves. No breeze stirred, but the bell chimed softly. Then another, and another. One by one, the bells began to sing. Their notes were clear and pure, ringing like laughter, like tears, like memories unfolding in sunlight. With each chime, the air filled with shimmering shapes, cranes folding themselves into flight, lanterns glowing in the dark, voices carried on the breeze. The stories that had been silent through winter were waking. Sora closed her eyes and listened, feeling every note inside her chest. She knew that spring was not just a season, it was a promise. A promise that even the quietest voices will one day sing again. When the last bell rang, the paper tree shed its leaves like soft confetti. And among the falling leaves, Sora spotted a new paper crane, delicate and bright, waiting for her hands to unfold its story. Spring in Sukihana was alive with color and sound. Cherry blossoms painted the skies pink and white, and the air was filled with the scent of fresh earth and new beginnings. The village buzzed softly with the return of birdsong and laughter. Sora stood beneath the paper tree, now fully transformed into a living maple, its branches heavy with tender leaves. In her hand, she held the delicate paper crane she had found among the falling leaves of the bells of silent spring. The crane was unlike any she had folded before. Its paper shimmered faintly, as if it held a light inside. Sora whispered a wish and gently unfolded the crane, revealing a story written in delicate calligraphy. To those who dare to dream, the sky is never the limit. As she read the words, the crane slowly lifted from her hands. It fluttered up, catching the breeze, and soared into the sky, a bright spark against the morning light. Watching it fly, Sora felt a warmth spread through her heart. The stories she had helped remember were not just echoes of the past. They were seeds of hope, ready to grow and inspire new dreams. She smiled, knowing her journey was only beginning. The nights in Sukihana had grown longer, stretched thin like ribbons of silver across the sky. The moon hung low over Moon Lake, bathing the rippling water in pale light, and the village seemed to hold its breath in quiet anticipation. Sora sat by her small wooden window, the lantern light flickering softly beside her as she folded delicate paper cranes. The paper felt cool and smooth beneath her fingertips, and with each fold, her heart whispered a silent wish for Tsuru, the spirit she had come to know and cherish. Her hands paused tonight, trembling slightly. There on the shelf stood the bellflower lantern her mother once treasured, its rice paper panes glowing faintly in the dark. She had never dared light it, but tonight something in her whispered it was time. With trembling fingers, Sora opened the lantern's door and placed inside the folded crane she named Tsuru. The lantern didn't light with flame, but instead hummed softly, a gentle sound like wind brushing through the leaves. When she peered through the paper panes, she no longer saw her small bedroom. Instead, she found herself gazing upon a dreamscape, moonlit plum trees that stretched endlessly, their blossoms glowing faintly, and in the distance, a solitary figure, Tsuru, not shimmering as a spirit, but as a girl, fragile and real. Tsuru was holding a broken paper crane, its wings torn, and eyes full of sorrow. "I never meant to disappear," the voice came softly, as if carried on the night breeze. "I folded myself away to protect others, but in doing so, I was forgotten." Sora's heart clenched. She spoke with trembling hope. "You are not alone. You are remembered now." The lantern glowed brighter as the broken crane slowly mended itself within Tsuru's hands. The paper wings fluttered like a fragile heartbeat, then lifted, soaring through the moonlit grove. Suddenly, Sora was no longer by her window, but standing beside Tsuru under the plum trees, feeling the crisp night air and the magic of rebirth. The crane folded into a heart and glowed warmly, pulsing with gentle light. "You can stay now," Sora whispered. And with a final shimmer, Tsuru smiled, alive, free, and remembered. Days passed, and the world around Sukihana shifted gently with the coming winter. Moon Lake lay calm and deep, its surface mirror-like beneath the pale sun. Sora remembered her grandmother's words. "Beneath the lake lie threads of stories, forgotten names and lost dreams. When your heart listens, they will call to you." One crisp morning, she felt a tug deep within her chest, a quiet pull, like a thread pulling at the fabric of her soul. She gathered 3 precious things: a small palm-sized mirror, a spool of red thread tied carefully around her wrist, and a letter from her mother, folded and worn with time. Barefoot, she stepped into the cold lake water. It was colder than she expected, but comforting in its stillness. As she waded deeper, the water glowed softly beneath her skin, and the world above blurred into shimmering light. She felt herself descend, not falling, but invited, into a realm woven from water and memory. There, she saw the threads, countless ribbons of red, silver, and gold, shimmering beneath the lake, each pulsing with a faint heartbeat of forgotten stories. Her fingers brushed a thin red thread tied to her wrist, and it sang softly. A vision unfolded, a small child struggling to fold a crane on the lake's edge, tears falling onto the wet paper, the crane sinking into the water. The thread dimmed, but Sora held it steady, using her mirror to catch the faint light, and the thread glowed again, a thank you whispered on the water's breath. With gentle hands, she began to weave the threads back into the tapestry of the lake, mending memories and unspoken wishes. When she surfaced, the lake's edge glimmered with woven patterns, delicate cranes and hearts threaded between stones and trees. A message appeared in red thread on the dock. Not all things lost are gone. Some just need to be held again. Winter settled over Tsukihana, soft and silent. Snowflakes drifted like whispers, and the world seemed wrapped in a quiet hush. Sora often sat by her window, listening for a voice carried by the wind, a presence felt but not heard. One evening, her grandmother shared a secret. The voice in the winter wind is not heard with ears but remembered by the soul. Drawn by the whisper, Sora wrapped herself in her warmest scarf and followed the sound through the snow-laden village to a hidden clearing. There stood a magnificent tree, its branches folded from paper cranes, its trunk a tapestry of delicate calligraphy. The wind encircled her, then spoke without words. Some voices must be remembered before they can be heard. Sora touched the paper bark, and a page unfolded, revealing stories inked in fading letters. Reading aloud, she felt warmth, sorrow, and hope mingle in the air. The tree was a library of wind-borne memories, waiting for gentle hands to unfold its tales. As dawn broke, the paper branches blossomed into living wood, and the wind carried a soft voice of thanks for the keeper of names. With winter's retreat, the village awoke to the promise of spring. Sora's grandmother gifted her a box of tiny bells, each tied with a silk thread, the bells of silent spring. That evening, Sora hung them on the branches of the now living maple tree. The air was still, but as the bells chimed one by one without wind, stories arose, shimmering cranes, glowing lanterns, whispered laughter. Sora listened as the bells sang of memories long silent, now waking in the warmth of spring. Among falling leaves, a new paper crane awaited. It shimmered brighter than any before spring painted Tsukihana in blossoms and song. Sora held the shimmering paper crane she found in the maple's leaves. Unfolding it, she read the words. To those who dare to dream, the sky is never the limit. The crane lifted from her hands, soaring bright against the morning light. Sora smiled, feeling the stories she helped remember were not echoes of the past, but seeds of hope ready to inspire new dreams. Her journey had only just begun. As spring deepened, Sora discovered a hidden cottage at the forest's edge, a place where the threads of stories were woven into tapestries. Inside, an ancient loom awaited, shimmering with threads of every color and memory. With her hands steady and heart open, Sora began to weave. Each thread she picked told a story, stories of joy, sorrow, courage, and love. With every pass of the shuttle, the tapestry grew, not just a picture, but a living map of the village's past and future. As she wove, Sora understood her true role, not just a keeper of names, but a weaver of futures, stitching the hopes of those who came before with those yet to come. The tapestry shimmered with possibilities, a story still unfolding beneath the watchful moon. The ancient loom hummed softly beneath Sora's fingers, threads slipping and intertwining like rivers of light. Each strand was a story, some bright with laughter, others shadowed with loss, but all connected, woven into a vast fabric of life. As Sora worked, a gentle melody began to fill the cottage. It was not a song sung with voice but one whispered by the threads themselves, a song of weaving and becoming. She closed her eyes, feeling the rhythm pulse through her veins, steady and sure, like the heartbeat of the forest beyond the window. With every pass of the shuttle, the tapestry grew, images of the village in seasons past. Of children playing under cherry blossoms, of elders sharing tales beside fires, and of the paper cranes taking flight, soaring above the lake and into the sky. The melody swelled, wrapping around Sora like a warm cloak. She knew then that this song was her guide, leading her hands, shaping the stories into a future yet unseen. When she finally lifted her hands, the tapestry glowed softly, the images shimmering with a light all their own. Outside, the first stars of evening blinked awake, and the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of peace. Sora whispered a thanks into the quiet night. Days grew longer, and the tapestry continued to bloom beneath Sora's touch. But one night, the moon slipped behind clouds, and a chill wind swept through Tsukihana. Sora dreamed of a river, not of water, but of light. It flowed through the village, winding past houses and trees, carrying the stories she had woven into the world. The next morning, she awoke with a start and knew she had to find this river. Following the soft glow at dawn, Sora made her way to the forest's edge. There, hidden beneath a veil of mist, the river of light shimmered, its surface rippling with colors she had never seen before. She dipped her fingers into the water, feeling the warmth of countless memories flowing through her. The river whispered of journeys yet to come, of hearts to heal, and of dreams waiting to be born. Sora smiled, knowing that the stories she wove were not just threads in a tapestry, but rivers flowing through time, connecting past, present, and future. Spring deepened into early summer, and the village prepared for the Festival of Cranes, a celebration of hope, renewal, and the enduring spirit of Tsukihana. Sora, now known as the Weaver of Stories, was invited to hang her tapestry in the village square. It shimmered under the sun, a radiant map of memory and promise. As villagers gathered, hundreds of paper cranes took flight, folding themselves from hands young and old, soaring above the crowd like blossoms on the wind. Sora felt a warm breeze lift her hair and close her eyes. From the sky, the cranes sang a silent song, a song of gratitude for the stories remembered and the future embraced. That night, beneath the silver glow of the full moon, Sora stood once more by Moon Lake. The water reflected the stars, and the paper tree stood tall, its branches heavy with new cranes. She folded one final crane from shimmering paper, a promise to keep weaving stories, to listen to the wind, and to remember the voices that called her. As she released it into the night, the crane soared high, a beacon of light against the dark. Sora smiled, her heart full. The stories of Tsukihana would live on, whispered on the wind, woven into the stars, and carried on the river of light. As summer stretched lazily over Tsukihana, Sora felt a gentle pull toward a place she had only heard of in whispered legends, the Hidden Grove. It was said to be a secret heart of the forest, where ancient magic slept beneath moss-covered stones, and where the oldest stories waited in silence. Guided by the soft glow of her lantern, Sora ventured deeper into the woods than ever before. The air grew cooler, fragrant with pine and earth. Shadows danced lightly, But there was no fear in Sora's heart, only curiosity and hope. At the grove's center, she found a circle of ancient trees, their bark etched with symbols older than memory. In the middle lay a stone altar, blanketed with delicate white blossoms. Sora placed her hands upon the cool stone. The moment she did, the ground beneath her hummed softly, and a gentle light rose from the altar, wrapping her in warmth. Visions unfolded, stories of the first weavers, guardians of memory who had woven the very fabric of Tsukihana's magic. They sang songs not with words but with threads, binding time and heart into one. Sora realized her role was part of this sacred lineage, a keeper not only of tales but of the very soul of the village. With renewed purpose, she whispered a vow to protect the stories and to pass their light on to all who would listen. On the eve of the summer solstice, as fireflies lit the warm night, Sora dreamed again. This time, she was visited by the Dreamweaver, a gentle spirit clothed in shimmering robes woven from starlight. The Dreamweaver's eyes sparkled like galaxies as it extended a hand, offering Sora a delicate spindle made from moonbeams. "Use this," the spirit whispered, "to spin the dreams that shape tomorrow." Sora accepted the gift, feeling a new power bloom within her, a gentle strength that could weave hopes into reality, turning whispered wishes into living light. When she awoke, the spindle lay beside her, glowing faintly. With it, Sora began to craft not just stories of the past but dreams yet to be dreamt, binding them with threads of moonlight and hope. The Festival of Lights was near, and the whole village gathered by Moon Lake, each holding a lantern glowing softly with the warmth of their wishes. Sora, spindle in hand, led the opening ceremony, weaving dreams into the air as paper cranes floated gently down from the sky. As the lanterns were released, their light shimmered like stars reflected on the lake's surface, carrying the dreams and stories of every villager into the night. The air was filled with magic, a quiet promise that no story, no hope, no dream would ever be lost. And in that glowing moment, Tsukihana shone brightest of all. The morning after the Festival of Lights dawned with a delicate mist that wrapped Tsukihana in a silvery veil. The village looked like a dreamscape, softened and quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Sora awoke to the feeling of something calling her, not from the village, but from beyond the hills where the mist lingered thickest. She wrapped herself in her warmest cloak, took the spindle gifted by the Dreamweaver, and set out on a journey she had long sensed but never dared to take. The path through the forest was silent except for the soft crunch of her footsteps on fallen leaves and the occasional rustle of hidden creatures. The mist thickened, curling around the ancient trees like gentle fingers, and the light dimmed to a pale blue glow. After several hours, Sora reached a narrow bridge arching over a rushing stream that shimmered with an otherworldly light. She paused, staring into the depths of the water where glowing fish swam in lazy circles, their scales sparkling like stars. Suddenly, the spindle in her hand grew warm, pulsing softly with light. It seemed to hum in harmony with the river below. Sora crossed the bridge, feeling as if she was stepping into a place between worlds, either fully in the village she knew nor entirely in the realm of dreams. Ahead, the mist parted just enough to reveal a grove unlike any she had ever seen. Towering silver trees stretched toward the sky, their branches heavy with lanterns made not of paper but of pure light. The air smelled of jasmine and soft earth, and a quiet melody floated on the breeze, a song of memories, long forgotten and waiting to be remembered. At the grove's center was a pool of crystal-clear water that mirrored the sky and stars even in daylight. Sora knelt beside it, placing the spindle gently on the water's surface. The pool shimmered, and images began to ripple across its surface, visions of ancient weavers like herself, guiding the village through times of hardship and joy. She saw stories of love and loss, courage and kindness, all woven into the fabric of the land itself. The spindle glowed brighter, and Sora realized that the gift from the Dreamweaver was not just for weaving dreams, but for connecting the past and the future, a bridge that only the bravest could cross. With a deep breath, she reached into the pool and touched the water. It was cool and alive, flowing through her fingers like liquid light. Visions swirled faster now, a dance of stories from ages past and dreams yet to come. Sora felt a surge of power and responsibility. She was not just a keeper of memories, but a guardian of possibility. When she lifted her hand, the spindle floated above the pool, spinning slowly, casting ribbons of light that stretched across the sky like a tapestry in motion. The grove's lanterns brightened in response, filling the air with gentle warmth. Sora whispered a promise to the spirits of the grove. "I will carry your stories and your dreams, so they may live forever." As she turned to leave, the mist parted fully, revealing a path back home. But now, Sora walked not as a child with a simple wish, but as a weaver of light and hope. Back in Sukihana, the village stirred with the coming of midsummer. The days grew long and golden, and the air was fragrant with blooming flowers and fresh grass. Sora felt the weight of her journey settling gently in her heart. She had crossed the boundary between worlds and returned with a deeper understanding of her gift. The spindle now seemed to hum with quiet power, a constant companion in her hands. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of coral and violet, Sora gathered the village children by the edge of Moon Lake. "Tonight," she said softly, "we will share the song of the silver cranes." She unfolded a handful of shimmering paper cranes, each folded from silver-tinted paper that caught the last light of the day. "The silver cranes carry our hopes and dreams to the stars," Sora explained. "But they need our voices to guide them." The children's eyes widened with wonder as they formed a circle, hands linked, voices blending in a gentle song taught by Sora, a melody older than any of them, yet fresh and full of promise. As they sang, the silver cranes began to glow, lifting slowly from Sora's hands and floating upward on a breeze that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The cranes soared high above the lake, their wings sparkling like fragments of moonlight. The villagers watched in awe as the night sky seemed to ripple and shimmer with the cranes' flight. Sora's voice rose above the others, steady and clear, weaving the melody with the power of dreams and memory. The song carried through the forest, across hills and fields, reaching into the very heart of the world. And in that moment, something ancient and magical awoke, a deep pulse of light that spread like dawn across the land. Later, as the last notes faded, the villagers felt a quiet peace settle over them, a knowing that their stories and dreams were safe and alive. Sora smiled, knowing the song of the silver cranes was more than a melody. It was a living bond between the village, the spirits of the grove, and the endless sky above. The days after the song of the silver cranes passed in gentle rhythm, the village basking in a newfound calm. Yet Sora felt an unspoken pull, as if the forest itself was holding a secret just beyond her reach. One evening, as twilight folded softly over Tsukihana, Sora wandered toward the edge of Moon Lake, where the water shimmered under the glow of a rising crescent moon. The air was cool, filled with the scent of wet earth and blooming lilies. Sora knelt by the lake, folding a delicate crane from a piece of translucent silver paper, thinner than a leaf, brighter than the moonlight itself. As she worked, the silence around her deepened, the quiet so profound it felt like the world was listening. When the crane was complete, she whispered her wish into its tiny wings, a hope she barely dared to speak aloud. She released it onto the water, watching as it floated gently, catching the moon's light and gliding slowly toward the center of the lake. Suddenly, the surface rippled, and soft whispers rose from the water, voices old as the forest, carrying secrets and dreams long forgotten. The whispers grew clearer, weaving a tapestry of stories. A lost child found by the riverbank, a brave warrior's final song, the laughter of friends reunited after years apart. Sora closed her eyes and let the stories wash over her, each one a thread in the endless weave of life. When she opened them again, the lake was alive with hundreds of glowing cranes, their lights reflecting in the water like stars fallen from the sky. The night air hummed with magic, and Sora felt a deep peace settle into her bones, the knowledge that every whispered wish, every quiet hope, was a light in the darkness. She smiled softly, knowing the lantern's legacy would never fade. The next morning, as dawn's first light painted the village gold, Sora gathered the villagers by the ancient paper tree. Now heavy with cranes glowing faintly in the soft light. I have seen the stories of the past and the dreams of the future, she told them, her voice calm but full of strength. Each of us carries a light inside, a story waiting to be told, a hope waiting to be shared. She held up the spindle, its moonbeam glow steady and warm. We are all weavers in our own way. When we share our stories, when we listen and remember, we keep the magic alive. The villagers nodded, faces bright with understanding. From that day forward, Tsukihana became a place where stories were treasured like precious lanterns, passed from hand to hand, whispered beneath stars, and woven into the very fabric of the village. Sora knew her journey was far from over, but with every story she wove, every dream she spun, the legacy of the lantern burned a little brighter. And beneath the ever-watching moon, the whispering grove waited, patient, eternal, and full of light. Days passed, and the village of Tsukihana flourished under the gentle watch of the whispering grove. The lanterns hanging from branches swayed softly in the breeze, casting dancing shadows that seemed to tell stories of their own. Sora found herself drawn more and more often to the heart of the forest, where the silver trees stood tall and proud, their ancient magic humming in quiet harmony. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky melted into hues of lavender and rose, Sora heard a faint echo, A soft call carried on the wind, barely audible but unmistakably there. It was a voice, ancient and kind, woven from the very breath of the forest. Guided by the sound, Sora ventured deeper into the grove than ever before. The path narrowed, and the mist thickened, wrapping her in a cool embrace. Shadows flickered, but instead of fear, Sora felt comfort, as if the forest itself welcomed her presence. At the end of the path stood a great stone archway, covered in delicate vines and glowing faintly with the light of countless fireflies. Beneath the arch was a pool of water so still it mirrored the stars above perfectly. Sora approached and knelt beside the pool, her reflection mingling with the twinkling sky. The voice echoed again, clearer now, a melody of memories, hopes, and dreams. She closed her eyes and listened. Images danced behind her eyelids, children laughing under cherry blossoms, elders sharing stories by firelight, lovers meeting in secret glades. Each vision was a thread in the tapestry of Sukihana, binding past, present, and future. When she opened her eyes, the spindle in her hand began to glow, spinning gently like a tiny sun. Sora understood then. The grove was not just a place but a living memory, a guardian of all who had ever loved and dreamed here. She whispered a vow, soft as the night breeze. I will carry your echoes, your stories, and keep them safe for all time. The next morning, the village woke to a sky brushed with pastel colors and the scent of blooming lilies. Sora's heart was full of the grove's promise, and she felt a new clarity in her purpose. With the spindle glowing softly in her palm, she began to teach the children the ancient art of weaving dreams, not with thread, but with stories and songs, hopes and memories. Each day, they gathered beneath the paper tree, folding cranes and lanterns, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves and the hum of magic in the air. One quiet afternoon, as golden light filtered through the branches, Sora shared the story of the Dreamweaver, the spirit who gifted her the spindle and the power to shape dreams. The children listened wide-eyed as she spoke of the delicate balance between memory and hope, the power of belief, and the magic found in kindness and courage. In time, Sora realized that the greatest magic was not in the glowing lanterns or shimmering cranes, but in the hearts of those who dared to dream and share their stories. And so, the village of Sukihana grew ever brighter, a beacon of light woven from countless threads of hope, whispered softly beneath the endless sky. The days grew shorter, and the gentle warmth of summer began to fade, replaced by the soft chill of early autumn. Leaves painted the forest in fiery shades of amber and gold, drifting lazily to the ground like delicate promises. Sukihana was bathed in this quiet beauty, the air rich with the scent of earth and wood smoke. One evening, as Sora wandered near the edge of the Whispering Grove, she noticed a subtle change in the atmosphere. The usual hum of magic seemed to soften, like a breath held in anticipation. The lanterns hanging from the trees flickered faintly, casting long shadows that stretched deeper into the twilight. Drawn by an unseen force, Sora followed a narrow, winding path she had never noticed before, a path veiled by ancient ferns and moss-covered stones. The forest grew stiller with each step, the only sound her own footsteps mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves. At the end of the path, she came upon a small clearing illuminated by the pale light of the moon. There, standing quietly among the trees, was a figure, tall, cloaked in silver-gray robes that shimmered like mist, eyes glowing softly with an otherworldly light. Sora's breath caught, but the figure did not move or speak. Instead, a calm radiance spread from its presence, filling the clearing with a sense of peace and protection. The figure reached out a hand, and from the palm floated a single, glowing lantern, smaller and simpler than the ones hanging in the grove, but pulsating with a gentle warmth. Sora stepped forward, understanding blooming in her heart. This was the Silent Guardian, an ancient spirit bound to protect the secrets of the grove and the legacy of the weavers. Without words, the guardian passed the lantern to her. As she took it, a wave of warmth and clarity washed over her, filling her with strength she had never known. The guardian's eyes met hers for a moment, a silent promise of guidance and companionship in the journey ahead. Then, as quietly as it had appeared, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving Sora alone in the clearing, the glowing lantern cradled gently in her hands. She knew then that her path was no longer solitary. The legacy of the grove was alive within her, and the silent guardian would walk beside her, through every shadow and light. With the guardian's lantern lighting her way, Sora returned to the village, her heart alight with new purpose. The spindle in her other hand seemed to pulse in time with the lantern's gentle glow, a harmony of ancient magic and newfound courage. Days turned into weeks, and Sora taught the villagers not only to weave dreams but also to listen deeply to the whispers of the wind, the stories hidden in the bark of trees, and the unspoken wishes in their own hearts. One crisp morning, beneath a sky streaked with pale pink and gold, Sora gathered the village elders and the children by the great paper tree. The branches were now heavy with cranes and lanterns, glowing softly in the dawn light. She began to weave a story, a tale of threads intertwined, of past and future, of choices that ripple like waves across time. "The threads we weave today," she said, "are the fabric of tomorrow. Every kindness, every hope, every whispered dream is a stitch in the tapestry of our lives." The villagers listened intently as Sora spoke of destiny not as a fixed path but as a living thread, shaped by courage, compassion, and the willingness to dream. As she finished, the spindle and the guardian's lantern shone brighter, casting a warm light that wrapped the village in a comforting glow. That night, beneath a blanket of stars, the village dreamed together, their stories and hopes weaving through the air like shimmering threads, binding them in a shared tapestry of light and love. And Sora knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning of a legacy that would shine through all generations to come. As the seasons turned and the whispering winds of Sukihana carried the scent of falling leaves, Sora found herself drawn once more to the heart of the grove. The silent guardian's lantern illuminated her path with a soft, steady glow, guiding her steps through the thickening mist. This time, the forest seemed to breathe alongside her, every rustle, every flutter of a leaf, a gentle heartbeat in the symphony of nature. At the center of the grove, beneath the oldest silver tree, Sora knelt and placed the glowing lantern on the mossy ground. The light spread slowly, revealing ancient carvings etched deep into the bark, symbols of the past, stories encoded in lines of light and shadow. As Sora traced the carvings with her fingers, a flood of memories surged within her, not her own, but those of the grove itself. She saw visions of the first dreamweavers, their hands weaving dreams into reality. She felt the joy and sorrow of countless souls who had trusted their hopes to the lantern's light. Among the memories was a vision of a great darkness, a shadow that once threatened to consume the grove, only held at bay by the courage and unity of its people. Sora understood that the legacy she carried was fragile and precious, a balance between light and shadow. The silent guardian's presence was not just protection but a reminder of vigilance. With renewed resolve, she whispered a promise into the night. "I will guard these memories and this light, so that hope may never fade." Though the village basked in peace, far beyond the horizon, clouds gathered, heavy and dark, carrying a storm that whispered of change. The ancient balance within the whispering grove was shifting. Sora felt it in the air, a tension beneath the calm, a stirring of forces unseen but deeply felt. One evening, as the lanterns flickered uncertainly, Sora called the villagers together. By the glow of the paper tree, she spoke of the coming challenge, urging them to hold fast to their stories and dreams, for they were the lanterns that would light their way through darkness. United by her words, the villagers began to prepare, weaving lanterns and cranes stronger and brighter than ever before, their light a shield against the shadows gathering at the edges of their world. Sora stood at the grove's edge, the silent guardian beside her, their lights entwined in a radiant beacon. The night was silent but charged, a calm before the storm. With steady breath, Sora lifted the spindle and lantern high, a symbol of hope and courage for all who watched. No matter the darkness to come, the Whispering Grove's legacy would endure, a testament to the power of light woven from the threads of dreams, memories, and unwavering hearts. As the storm clouds loomed ever closer, the village of Tsukihana prepared for a night unlike any other. The Whispering Grove, usually so calm and protective, seemed to pulse with quiet urgency. Lanterns hung from every branch, their gentle glow a fragile shield against the gathering darkness. Sora stood at the center of the village, holding the guardian's lantern and the spindle tightly. She gazed upward, where the first stars began to blink in the deepening sky. Tonight, the sky was alive with falling stars, streaks of silver light cascading like whispers from the heavens. Elders spoke of the celestial event as a time when the veil between worlds thinned, when dreams and reality could mingle, and old magic could awaken. With a deep breath, Sora began to weave her dream, a dream not of herself, but of the village, the grove, and the lantern's legacy. Her fingers moved swiftly, folding silver cranes and lanterns that shimmered as if touched by starlight itself. One by one, the villagers joined, their voices rising in quiet song, a lullaby of hope and courage. The cranes took flight, carried by the wind into the night, their lights joining the stars above. Suddenly, a brilliant flash illuminated the sky. The storm had broken. Rain fell gently, washing the earth and filling the air with a fresh scent of renewal. But the lanterns did not falter. Their light grew stronger, weaving a tapestry of protection over Tsukihana. In that moment, Sora understood. The true power of the Whispering Grove was not in its magic alone, but in the unity of those who believed, who dreamed together beneath the endless sky. The storm would pass, but the light they shared would shine forever. The rain softened to a gentle drizzle, and as the first light of dawn painted the sky in soft pastels, Sukihana awoke to a world transformed. The air was crisp and filled with the fresh scent of earth and new beginnings. The storm had passed, leaving behind a tapestry of glistening leaves and shimmering lanterns. Sora stood at the edge of the Whispering Grove, the guardian's lantern cradled carefully in her hands. The spindle rested against her chest, warm and alive with quiet energy. Around her, the village stirred, faces bright with hope and awe at the resilience they had shared. The storm had tested their bonds, but it had also strengthened them. The lantern's light, once fragile and flickering, now shone with steady brilliance, reflecting the unyielding spirit of Sukihana's people. Sora took a deep breath and stepped forward into the grove. The ancient silver trees seemed to bow gently, their leaves whispering a song of welcome. She felt the pulse of the forest's magic, steady, vibrant, alive. As she walked, the guardian's lantern floated upward, its light mingling with the dawn, weaving through the branches like a thread of purest gold. The spindle began to spin again, weaving a new story, one of healing, growth, and endless possibility. At the heart of the grove, Sora paused beneath the oldest tree. She closed her eyes and let the magic flow through her, a connection spanning generations, a promise that the legacy of the Whispering Grove would endure. The village gathered silently behind her, each person holding a small lantern, their faces glowing with quiet determination. Together, they lifted their lights, sending a wave of hope and renewal across the grove. And as the sun rose higher, casting its golden light over Sukihana, Sora knew their journey was far from over. The legacy they had woven was now a living tapestry, vibrant, unbreakable, and filled with the promise of tomorrow. The days that followed the storm were filled with quiet joy and gentle restoration. The villagers of Sukihana worked side by side, tending to the trees and the paths, rehanging lanterns and weaving fresh cranes that fluttered in the breeze like hopes set free. The Whispering Grove sang softly, its magic flowing through every leaf and stone. Yet, beneath the surface of renewal, a gentle unease stirred in Sora's heart. Late at night, when the village was still and the stars shimmered like scattered diamonds, she often heard a faint melody, a song woven with sadness and longing, carried on the wind but just beyond her reach. Determined to understand, Sora returned to the heart of the grove, guided by the glowing light of the guardian's lantern and the steady rhythm of the spindle. There, in the clearing beneath the ancient silver tree, she discovered a hidden hollow, a secret space carved long ago, where the echoes of forgotten dreams whispered like ghosts. As she stepped inside, the melody grew stronger, wrapping around her like a gentle embrace. It was the forgotten song, an ancient lullaby sung by the first dreamweavers, now nearly lost to time. Sora closed her eyes and let the music fill her soul. With each note, memories flowed through her, stories of love and loss, courage and sacrifice, woven together in a tapestry of light and shadow. Moved beyond words, she reached for the spindle and began to weave, spinning the song's melody into shimmering threads of silver and gold. As the threads wove through the air, the clearing brightened with soft light. The forgotten song rose anew, carried by the breeze to the farthest corners of the grove, awakening memories long silent. The villagers, hearing the melody, gathered around the clearing, their faces softened by tears and smiles. The song healed old wounds, bridged forgotten histories, and united their hearts. In that moment, Sora realized the true legacy of the Whispering Grove was not just protection and hope, it was memory itself. The stories, the songs, and the dreams of those who came before were the roots that kept the forest alive and strong. With a deep breath, Sora whispered to the night, "Your song will never fade. It lives in us all." With the forgotten song restored, the village of Sukihana felt a new sense of harmony. The past and present danced together, weaving a future bright with possibility. Sora knew the journey ahead would not be without trials. The balance between light and shadow, hope and fear, was delicate. But she also knew they were stronger together, bound by stories, love, and dreams. The Guardian's lantern and the spindle shone with renewed brilliance, symbols of that unbreakable bond. And as the sun set, casting long golden rays through the whispering leaves, Sora stepped forward, ready to face whatever new adventures awaited, carrying the legacy of Sukihana in her heart. As the days lengthened and Sukihana basked in the gentle glow of renewed hope, Sora felt an old restlessness stirring deep within her spirit. The forgotten song had awakened something more, a call from the past that could not be ignored. One crisp morning, under a sky brushed with soft clouds, Sora ventured beyond the familiar paths of the Whispering Grove. The Guardian's lantern floated beside her, casting a gentle light on the twisting trail ahead. The forest grew denser, older, and the air thickened with ancient magic. The trees seemed to lean in, their whispers now urgent and filled with warning. At last, Sora reached a hidden glade where the earth was cracked and worn, marked by strange symbols glowing faintly beneath the moss. In the center lay a stone altar, weathered by time but pulsing with quiet power. As she approached, the spindle in her hand began to spin faster, weaving threads of shimmering light into the air. Suddenly, visions flooded her mind, images of a forgotten dreamweaver, a guardian who had once faced a darkness even greater than the storm now behind them. This guardian's name was Leora, the bearer of the last light, who had sealed away a shadow that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their world. But the seal was weakening, and the echoes of that past battle whispered warnings through the grove. Sora knew that to protect Sukihana and the legacy she cherished, she would have to follow Leora's path, to unlock the ancient magic and face the shadow rising once more. With determination burning bright, she touched the altar. The threads of the spindle shimmered, weaving a new tapestry, one of courage, sacrifice, and the eternal light that no darkness could ever extinguish. The journey ahead was daunting, but Sora was ready. For the light of the Whispering Grove was not hers alone. It belonged to all who dreamed, remembered, and dared to hope. The weight of the ancient vision lingered in Sora's mind like a persistent echo. Leora's story, her bravery, her sacrifice, was not just history but a warning etched in time. The seal she had forged to contain the darkness was weakening, and its shadows were beginning to creep once more into the edges of the Whispering Grove. As dusk settled, Sora returned to the village, the guardian's lantern glowing softly in her hands. The villagers gathered around her, sensing the change in her demeanor, a blend of resolve and quiet fear. She shared the vision with them, her voice steady but laced with urgency. The darkness is not gone. It stirs beneath the earth, beneath the roots of our home. We must prepare together. The elders nodded solemnly, recalling tales passed down through generations, stories of the last light and the power it held to banish shadows. The villagers, young and old alike, began to weave new lanterns and fold fresh cranes, their hands steady with purpose. Sora spent nights in the grove, learning to weave the magic of the spindle more deeply, drawing strength from the songs and memories of those who had come before. Each thread she spun was a promise, a tether of hope anchoring their world against the encroaching dark. One evening, as the moon rose full and bright, a chilling wind swept through the trees. The lanterns flickered, and shadows twisted unnaturally, writhing like living things. Sora stood firm, raising the guardian's lantern high. Its light flared defiantly, pushing back the darkness in a halo of warmth. But she knew this was only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Days passed, and the tension in Sukihana grew palpable. Strange whispers echoed through the grove, soft voices calling from the shadows, tempting and taunting. Sora felt their pull but held fast, guided by the legacy of the last light and the strength of her own heart. One dawn, the village awoke to find a circle of shadowed figures surrounding the whispering grove, dark remnants of the ancient evil that Leora had once sealed away. They moved silently, their eyes gleaming with cold hunger. Sora gathered the villagers at the heart of the grove. "Tonight," she said, "we stand together. The light we carry is stronger than any darkness." As night fell, the village lanterns shone like stars against the blackness. Sora led a ritual, weaving threads of light with the spindle, their glow intertwining with the lantern's flames. The shadows lunged, but each touch of light dissolved their forms. The battle was fierce, a dance of flickering flames and creeping darkness. At the climax, Sora reached deep within herself, calling upon the courage of Leora and the hope of every dream ever dreamed in Sukihana. With a burst of radiant light, she sealed the shadows away once more, this time not with fear, but with the strength of a united heart. The grove fell silent, bathed in a serene glow. Sora looked to the stars, whispering, "We are the light. We are the legacy." After the fierce battle against the shadows, a calm settled over Sukihana, but Sora knew it was only a fragile peace. The grove still hummed softly, as if breathing, alive with the magic of countless generations. One morning, while walking beneath the silver leaves, Sora noticed something new, a faint glow emanating from deep within the oldest tree's roots. Kneeling down, she gently brushed aside moss and earth to reveal a small, intricately carved wooden box. Her heart quickened. This was no ordinary relic. It was ancient, adorned with symbols matching those on the spindle and the guardian's lantern. With trembling hands, she opened the box. Inside lay a delicate scroll tied with a silver ribbon, and a single shining crystal that pulsed like a heartbeat. Unfurling the scroll, Sora read the elegant script. "To the Dreamweaver who holds the last light. Within this crystal lies the seed of renewal, the power to awaken the grove's true heart. But beware, for with great light comes great shadow. Sora felt a surge of purpose. This crystal was a gift from the first Dreamweavers, a key to restoring the grove's full magic and safeguarding their future. Yet, the warning weighed heavily on her. The shadows they fought were cunning and patient, always waiting for a chance to return. Determined, Sora gathered the village leaders. Together, they devised a plan to journey deep into the heart of the grove, to awaken the ancient spirit that once protected their home, a spirit said to be the source of the grove's eternal whisper. The journey was unlike any Sora had ever taken. The deeper into the grove they ventured, the more alive the forest became. Vines moved gently, guiding their path, while soft lights danced around them like playful fireflies. Sora clutched the crystal, feeling its warmth growing with each step. The elders chanted quietly, weaving protective spells as they went. After hours of walking, they reached a clearing bathed in golden light. In the center stood a massive tree, its trunk wide as a house, roots sprawling like the arms of the earth itself. Sora approached reverently. Placing the crystal into a hollow carved into the bark, she whispered the ancient words from the scroll. The grove responded with a breath. Leaves rustled, light shimmered, and from within the tree, a soft glow began to emerge. Slowly, a figure took shape. Radiant and shimmering, the spirit of the grove awakened at last. It spoke with a voice like the wind through the trees. "You have called me forth, Dreamweaver. The light you bear is pure, but your journey is far from over." Sora nodded, heart pounding with both hope and the weight of responsibility. The spirit continued, "Together we will weave a new dawn, but first you must face the shadow within yourself." The spirit's words echoed in Sora's mind long after the grove fell silent. You must face the shadow within yourself. What did that mean? She had battled darkness outside, but now a darker challenge called her from within. That night, as the village slept under a blanket of stars, Sora sat alone beneath the ancient silver tree. The crystal glowed softly in her palm, its warmth pulsing like a heartbeat, steady and alive. Closing her eyes, she let herself sink into the quiet. Memories surfaced, times of doubt, fear, and loneliness she had hidden deep inside. The moments she had questioned her strength, her worth, and even her purpose. A shadow, cold and heavy, began to form in the depths of her mind. It whispered doubts and fears, wrapping tendrils around her heart, threatening to pull her into darkness. But Sora breathed deeply, remembering the lantern's light, the spindle's weaving, and the voices of the Dreamweavers past. She reached inward, gathering threads of hope, courage, and love, weaving them tightly into a glowing tapestry. The shadow recoiled, hissing in frustration, but it was not defeated yet. It challenged her again and again, whispering lies and stirring old wounds. Each time, Sora met it with compassion for herself and determination to heal. She accepted the shadow not as an enemy, but as a part of her whole self, a story waiting to be understood and transformed. Hours passed like moments, until at last the shadow softened and melted into the light she held within. When Sora opened her eyes, the crystal blazed with pure radiance, brighter than ever before. The spirit of the grove appeared once more, its face serene and proud. "You have embraced your shadow and found your true light. Now the grove will flourish as never before." With the shadow within reconciled, the magic of the grove blossomed in ways the villagers had never seen. Trees sparkled with dew that sang songs of the stars. The air was alive with gentle laughter, and the lantern's glow was warm and endless. Sora stood among her people, the guardian's lantern shining proudly in her hands, the crystal secured around her neck. Together they planted new seeds, both of trees and of dreams, knowing that the Whispering Grove was more than a place. It was a living heart, beating with every hope, every story, and every light. And as the sun rose on Susquehanna, casting golden hues over the silver leaves, Sora smiled softly, ready for the endless stories yet to be woven. With the grove's magic renewed, the village of Susquehanna prepared for a celebration unlike any before, the Festival of Lights, a tradition to honor the bond between the people, the forest, and the ancient dreamweavers. Lanterns of every shape and color hung from the trees, casting a kaleidoscope of gentle light across the village. Children laughed as they folded delicate paper cranes, their tiny hands eager to send wishes soaring on the evening breeze. Sora, now revered not only as a guardian but as a symbol of hope, walked among her people with a quiet smile. The crystal around her neck sparkled with each step, a steady reminder of the journey she had undertaken. As twilight deepened, the village gathered in the heart of the Whispering Grove. The ancient silver tree stood tall, its branches glowing with soft light. Sora stepped forward, holding the guardian's lantern high. She began to weave a new melody with her spindle, spinning threads of light that danced in the air, weaving a tapestry of memories, dreams, and wishes. The villagers joined, their voices rising in harmony, a chorus of hope that seemed to lift the very stars themselves. The lanterns were released, drifting upward like glowing petals, filling the night sky with a river of light. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the past, present, and future united in a shared heartbeat. And in that moment, the Whispering Grove whispered back, its ancient magic singing of new beginnings, endless stories, and a legacy carried by light and love. Though the festival marked a time of joy and peace, Sora knew the world beyond Susquehanna still held mysteries and challenges. The spirit of the grove had spoken of a greater destiny, a journey beyond the trees, beyond the mountains that cradled their home. With the blessing of her village, Sora prepared to venture forth, carrying the guardian's lantern. The spindle and the crystal, the symbols of the light they all shared. Her heart was steady, her spirit strong. Wherever the path led, she would carry the stories of Susquehanna with her, weaving new tales and lighting the darkness with hope. As dawn broke, Sora stepped beyond the edge of the Whispering Grove, the first light of a new adventure shining brightly before her. The world beyond Susquehanna was vast and unlike anything Sora had ever imagined. Rolling hills stretched into the horizon, dotted with wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. The sky was wide and open, painted with hues of dawn's early light. Yet, with every step away from the familiar grove, a whisper of uncertainty brushed against her heart. The guardian's lantern glowed softly, a steady beacon cutting through the unknown. Sora's journey led her to a small village nestled beside a serene lake, its waters shimmering like glass beneath the morning sun. The villagers welcomed her warmly, curious about the mysterious traveler bearing the ancient light. She shared stories of Tsukihana and the Whispering Grove, of the shadows faced and the light reclaimed. In return, she listened to their tales, songs of forgotten magic, of spirits dwelling beneath the lake's depths, and of a legend about a lost temple hidden beyond the nearby mountains. Intrigued and feeling the pull of destiny once more, Sora decided to seek the temple. It was said to hold secrets of the Dreamweavers, knowledge that could strengthen the light she carried and help protect not only her home, but all the lands beyond. Before departing, the villagers gifted her a delicate pendant, a small charm carved from lake stone, said to guide travelers safely through trials. With gratitude, Sora fastened it beside the crystal, feeling its quiet strength join her own. The path ahead wound steeply upward toward the misty peaks. The air grew thinner, colder, and the forests thinner but more mysterious, alive with unseen eyes and whispered songs carried on the wind. Sora knew her journey had only just begun. After days of climbing and careful travel, Sora arrived at the entrance to the lost temple. Ancient stone steps, worn by centuries of rain and wind, led into a cavernous hall adorned with carvings of swirling light and shadow, an eternal dance. Inside, the air hummed with power. As she ventured deeper, the walls seemed to pulse, responding to the light of her lantern. Symbols matching those on her spindle and crystal glowed softly, guiding her onward. At the heart of the temple lay an altar, upon which rested a book bound in woven silver threads. Opening it, Sora discovered the chronicles of the Dreamweavers, stories of their origins, their magic, and the sacrifices made to keep darkness at bay. Among the pages, she found a passage that spoke directly to her heart. The true power of the Dreamweaver lies not only in light but in balance, embracing shadow as a part of self, weaving both into harmony. A profound understanding washed over her. The journey was not just about fighting darkness, but about weaving every thread of existence, light and shadow, hope and fear, into a unified whole. With this wisdom, Sora felt her own magic deepen, the spindle weaving patterns of light richer and more intricate than ever before. But as she rose to leave, a distant rumble echoed through the temple, a reminder that shadows still lurked beyond the horizon, waiting. As Sora stepped out of the ancient temple, the sky had shifted. Thick clouds rolled over the mountain peaks, and a distant thunder growled, as if the earth itself was warning her. The air was charged with tension, both a storm and something more ancient stirring beneath the clouds. She wrapped her cloak tighter and began descending the rugged path, the guardian's lantern illuminating the shadows that stretched like fingers across the rocks. Every step echoed with a deepening urgency. She could feel the pulse of the grove's magic resonating through her crystal and pendant. Halfway down, the ground trembled. A sudden crack split the earth ahead, blocking her path with a jagged chasm. From its depths, tendrils of dark mist curled upward, swirling with malevolent intent. Sora raised the lantern, its golden light clashing against the encroaching darkness. The mist hissed and surged forward, testing her resolve. Drawing upon the balance she had learned within the temple, Sora closed her eyes, feeling the shadow within her not as foe, but as a part of the whole. Slowly she wove her spindle, spinning light and shadow into a protective weave, fragile yet strong. The mist recoiled, writhing against the pattern, but could not penetrate it. With a sudden surge, Sora pushed forward, crossing the chasm on a glowing thread she spun from her spindle. She landed safely on the other side, breathless but determined. The storm broke overhead in a sudden downpour, rain washing away the dust and dark magic alike. Ahead, the path led toward a dense forest known as the Veilwood. Whispers said it was a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where spirits and shadows mingled freely. Sora steeled herself. The true trial was only just beginning. The Veilwood was a place of eerie beauty. Trees towered like ancient sentinels, their branches weaving a lattice that filtered sunlight into fragmented, shifting patterns. The air was cool, thick with the scent of moss and earth, and faint murmurs seemed to drift on the breeze, voices from beyond. As Sora stepped beneath the canopy, the crystal's light pulsed softly, revealing hidden runes glowing faintly on tree trunks. She followed their glow, each step drawing her deeper into the forest's heart. Suddenly, shadows gathered around her, not hostile, but watchful. They flickered at the edge of vision, shapes of forgotten spirits, guardians of the Veilwood. One spirit, shimmering with silver-blue light, approached. Its voice was like a gentle breeze. "Dreamweaver, why do you journey through the veil?" Sora bowed respectfully. "To protect the balance between light and shadow, to keep the world safe from the darkness that threatens to consume it." The spirit nodded. "Then you must prove yourself worthy. The Veilwood reveals truths hidden deep. Are you ready to face what lies within your own soul?" With steadied breath, Sora nodded. The forest around her shimmered and shifted, and the whispers grew louder, calling her to a deeper understanding, a reckoning with all she had become and all she might yet be. As the Veilwood's whispers grew into a gentle chorus, Sora found herself standing before a pool so still it perfectly mirrored the sky above, even under the dense canopy. The spirit's voice lingered in her mind. "The mirror of the soul reveals what lies beneath your light and shadow." Taking a deep breath, Sora knelt beside the pool. She gazed into its depths, expecting to see only her reflection. Instead, the water rippled and shifted, revealing scenes from her past, moments of joy, sorrow, courage, and fear interwoven like threads in a tapestry. Images of the grove, the battle with shadows, her doubts, and her moments of kindness appeared and faded with the rhythm of her heartbeat. But then the reflection darkened, revealing a shadowed version of herself. Not evil, but a version burdened by fear and loneliness, a self she had long tried to deny. The shadowed Sora spoke, her voice soft but clear. "You cannot carry the light without embracing the darkness within." Tears welled in Sora's eyes, but she smiled gently. "You are a part of me, and I will not turn away anymore." With that, she reached toward the pool, and as her hand touched the water, the two versions of herself merged into one, balanced and whole. The spirit of the Veilwood appeared beside her, glowing warmly. "You have passed the test. Your journey will now lead you to the heart of the shadow's source." Guided by the spirit, Sora ventured deeper into the Valewood until they reached a cavern hidden beneath ancient roots. A cold wind whispered warnings, but the crystal around her neck pulsed steadily, lighting the dark. Inside, she found a swirling vortex of shadow, a void hungry to consume light and life. The shadows reached for her, but this time, Sora did not fight alone. The spirit's light joined with hers, weaving together a powerful shield of harmony. With her spindle, she spun a web of glowing threads, each a story of hope, courage, and love. The threads shimmered, binding the shadow's hunger and transforming the darkness into a gentle night, peaceful and full of stars. The cavern softened, the shadows retreating like a fading storm. Sora felt a deep peace settle within her. She had faced the heart of darkness and emerged stronger, wiser, and whole. Emerging from the cavern, Sora felt the weight of her journey settle gently into her bones. The Valewood seemed to breathe around her, its whispered voices now singing soft songs of gratitude and renewal. The shadows that once lurked had been transformed into a tranquil twilight, a delicate balance where light and dark danced in harmony. The spirit who had guided her stepped forward, its form shimmering with ancient wisdom. "You have rekindled the balance, Dreamweaver. The world beyond Tsukihana will feel the warmth of your light." With a final nod, the spirit faded into the gentle rustle of leaves, leaving Sora alone beneath the emerald canopy. She took a moment to breathe in the peaceful air, feeling the crystal and pendant glow warmly against her chest. Her thoughts drifted home, to the Whispering Grove, the village, and the Festival of Lights. She knew her journey was far from over, but she also knew she carried the strength and wisdom of both shadow and light within her. Sora's return to Tsukihana was met with joy and celebration. The villagers gathered under the silver tree, their faces glowing with hope and love. Children ran to greet her, their laughter ringing like bells through the grove. The Guardian's lantern shone brighter than ever, its light spreading warmth and comfort. Sora shared tales of her journey, the lost temple, the Valewood, and the shadow she embraced. Together, they wove new dreams into the fabric of the grove, ensuring the magic of balance and harmony would flourish for generations to come. As twilight fell, Sora looked up at the stars twinkling above the ancient trees. She whispered a promise to protect the light, honor the shadows, and continue weaving the endless story of the Whispering Grove.